past other brands, then you get a bigger effect. Right? So if you go lower than them, you get a bigger uplift. If you go higher than them, you get a bigger drop in sales. And this is because it's about relative prices. Consumers are very poor at knowing what prices that they're really paying, but they're quite good at seeing, like on shelves and things, or knowing whether an interest rate is higher or lower than someone else. If your price is near average and you move it, you get big elasticities. Because if you're near average, when you move, you're more likely to pass other people. You're also probably a bigger brand, and therefore you're in more people's repertoire. If you're a small brand, though, small brands get bigger uplifts on a smaller base, obviously. If you move past the leader, in the heads of more consumers, it's in the repertoires of more consumers, you're going to be noticed more relative to the dominant market share brand in the category. And if you tell people, so here's a really simple marketing law. If you drop price, shout about it. Try to drop your price only a little bit and do lots of shouting. And if you raise price, shut up. It's as simple as that. It reminds me of the airline law. You know, like if a plane crashes, what do? Stop advertising. Go quiet. Stop people thinking about you. Back to private labels. Private labels, interestingly, show a slightly different reaction to price. They suffer very much if they raise prices, which is about the perceptions that are linked to private labels. We believe that private labels should be cheap. And when they're not, we really move. It's a reason not to buy. It screams at us when they're not, if they're not cheap. Right? It really catches our attention. Okay, what we really have come here to talk about today is about media and advertising and our spend on that. So what should we do in a recession? Should we cut our advertising budgets? What do you want me to say? This is what Henry Ford said. He was a wise man. A man who stops advertising to save money is like a man who stops a clock to save time. It's actually a little obscure. What he's saying is, I spend money on advertising to get a return. Right? It earns me money. So why would I stop? The only time I would stop advertising is at a point where it was not giving me a return. Right? Or maybe one other time, and that is if you're going to go broke. I mean, I'd be a stupid marketing professor to say to people, you should always keep spending money on advertising. Like, if you're going to go broke, if you're facing cash flow difficulties, yeah, you should stop advertising. You should stop lots of things that burn cash. Right? But at any other time, you advertise to get a return. Now, of course, advertising gives a long-term return. A lot of econometricians and things argue over this and about how to do the modelling, and that there's not much evidence for long-term return. But let me give you a really simple example of how advertising can have a very, very long-term return. A small child watches TV and learns that the golden arches mean McDonald's and hamburgers and toys. Yeah, they learn this from the advertisement. When does that ad stop working? When they die. And maybe not even then, right? Because they probably told their kids. Advertising's effects can be very, 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 very long term, particularly when they're building some sort of memory structure. But they're also long term because most consumers are light buyers of categories, and take quite a long time to come back into the category. So the ad exposure works in their memory for a very, very long period. So this means advertising has a long-term effect, and that's the long-term payback for our current spending now. So of course it's terribly tempting to stop at certain times because we don't see the hit from it for quite a long time. We do lose money because every time we stop, we lose all the return that we get from our advertising. But of course, it's spread way into the future, so we don't see it. So it is a lovely way to boost your bottom line. But anyone who tells you that you're cutting advertising to boost the share price is an absolute idiot who knows nothing about finance. Because the financial markets are not that stupid. They do not look at profit returns to judge the value of a company. They're basing it on long-term profit flows. And the share market is extremely suspicious of companies who wind back marketing expenditure to try to boost their bottom line. I mean, it's a fix, right? And geez, you know, okay, there are some pretty dumb people in finance, but they're not that dumb. Huh? They're not that dumb. And recently, companies like Kraft and Unilever previously have been absolutely hammered by financial analysts because they were tweaking their bottom line by just cutting marketing expenditure. And if you have been reading a lot of the big consumer brand companies in the US now, when they make their financial statements, they are very careful to announce how much they're spending on marketing. They are not cutting, or if they're increasing, to say that they are. Because this is much more how analysts judge companies. So, only cut if you have to survive. If you cut in line with competitors, though, you don't suffer that much. Except, I mean, I say this, though, you have to think of the broad range of competitors. Like, classically, private label is a competitor. And if you just cut in line with other, like, national brands, then you still get hurt, which I've just said. Okay. So share of voice matters a lot. And we see this pattern where it generally follows a market share sort of pattern. Bigger brands who have more market share have to also spend more on advertising. A really crucial part of advertising is about holding on to the tenuous sales that you have. I mean, I say tenuous. Most of your customers, you've got a few heavy customers and an awful lot of light customers. You mean nothing to them in their lives. And that's normal marketing, okay? Don't ever think you're going to turn your customers into loyal tribe members or lovers. You're not. They're busy, they've got lives. So these are very tenuous customers, and you have to advertise to keep reminding them that you are there and that they should keep on buying from you. There have been plenty of brands in this world that have launched and gone from small brands to big brands without advertising. But there is no such thing as a big brand that has stayed a big brand without advertising. Advertising is terribly important to hold on to the sales that you have. So you can get away with a bit less of it if your competitors stop trying to steal your sales from you. So it's about really maintaining spend. What about spending more? And at this point, the traditional talk on marketing in recession says you should spend more in a recession because research shows that companies that spend more in a recession do better, and etc. I'd like to say that, it's just that I have actually read the literature. And when you read it, doesn't really tell that story. There's some very dodgy studies that suggest that, and any of the high-quality ones say it's not really. We don't really know anything about brand-level spending during a recession, whether spending more gets you ahead. What we do know is just the general thing that upping your share of voice against competitors gives you